Good Tuesday to you guys. I'm sure that you know, as you can tell, that Mr. McAllister's not there this week. Miss Ramage is there. Tomorrow, Miss Ramage won't be there, but she'll be there on Thursday and Friday. And I will be back after spring break. But I'm going to Google Meet you guys on Wednesday. And what I'm going to do is I will, and I'll put this on Google Classroom. Give you about 5 minutes to settle yourself in, and then pop the link up, and everybody can go to the link. And what I'm basically going to do is check your notes from Greece Part 1. You can just show me on your computer video, and just say hello, see how you're doing. See if you have any questions, and then after that, we will probably be finishing up some notes and doing some review stuff for this chapter. I was going to give you a little quiz on Friday, but it's just cramming too much information, a little bit of time, and I don't want to do that to you. So we'll sort of review when we get back from spring break this chapter. Probably have some kind of assessment that week when we get back, and then we'll get into Rome. We're in pretty good shape as far as time goes. We will get the curriculum done, looks like, before the school year is out, which is really remarkable considering all the snafus we've had this year, from being quarantined to going AB to me having the surgery. So it's been quite remarkable on your part that you've stuck with it and you've done well. And remember that I have given you a bonus opportunity on Google Classroom. If you want to take that, you don't have to. But if you want to take that, you can. And then the Easter egg questions. Some of you have been emailing me, what's the Easter egg questions? If you remember, here's the big if. If you've been watching the videos, I will put Easter egg questions in there to give you bonus points, and you should have written them on your bell ringers like I told you, or somewhere, your answers. And you get bonus points for those too. That you don't have to do those, but when the 9 weeks comes up, and let's say that you have a C and you want a B, or you have a B and you want an A, or vice, or if you have an F, you need a D. And you say, what can I do for bonus? Well, guys, I'm giving you bonus opportunities. You just got to take them. So just realize that. Lastly, I don't think I have to explain the importance of your behavior. You did well for Mr. McAllister. I expect you to do the same this week as well. Okay, let's review a little bit, add a few notes. It's so important that you review through this. Do not put me on mute and just go to the end of this and add notes. Don't do that, okay? Because you're not going to be able to get this information and do well. Remember, when I get back from after spring break, there is not going to be a test online. It'll be paper like usual again, and so you really need to pay attention to this stuff, okay? So going to the Persians, reviewing a little bit about the Persians. Cyrus the Great created the Persian Empire, which at the time was the largest empire in the world, which spanned in the Middle East into even close to India. He did so. Cyrus was able to conquer all this land through his use of his military, with his cavalry units, soldiers on horse, and his group of immortals, which that's the nickname of his soldiers that were so good. Of course, you should know that when they eventually meets the Spartans at Thermopylae, they are not, they probably shouldn't get that nickname anymore. After Cyrus dies, his son Cambyses takes over, but he is assassinated, leaving Darius to be the king of Persia. Darius is going to be someone that is going to be well organized. He's going to divide his empire into 20 provinces, putting satraps, which were local governors, ahead of each province, which is going to make it a lot easier for him to rule. That way he doesn't have to deal with every little situation, sort of like we have here in America. So the president doesn't have to deal with every little situation. We have governors on the state level, and we have mayors on the local levels. In the Persian Empire, their capital is called Persepolis, which is going to be, I'll have to look. I think it's in current day Iran, but I'll have to check. And the religion is Zoroastrianism, which is going to be only practiced in the Persian Empire and is a dead religion pretty much today. So the Persians get mad at the Greeks, excuse me, because the Greeks aid in rebellions in their empire, meaning that they send either troops or they send troops and they send money over to these polises that are part of the Persian Empire at the time, and this makes Darius very mad. So as a result, he decides to send an envoy of soldiers over to teach Greece a lesson, which starts the Persian Wars. The first battle of the Persian War occurs in Marathon. You should have watched the decisive battle videos and answered the questions on that. And the Greeks pull the upset of the Persians. The Persians make the mistake of splitting their soldiers, their army up. One sails to Athens, the other one lands at Marathon. And the Greeks defeat the Persians, and of course the runner runs 26.2 miles to tell of the victory and falls down like Rover did all over when he gets there. Xerxes takes over for Darius after his death, and of course Xerxes is going to remember what the Greeks did and what happened to his dad at Marathon, so he's going to go and try to teach these Greeks a lesson. So he sends a massive army around the Aegean Sea, basically conquering everything in his path until he gets to Thermopylae. And at Thermopylae, this pass that goes into the Peloponnesus, remember the Peloponnesus is the bottom part of the Greek peninsula. And there, 300 Spartans defend that pass for 3 days. You should have watched the video on Thermopylae. They were, of course, betrayed and eventually fall, Leonidas and his 300 Spartans. But by doing this and holding the Persians for 3 days and killing 10,000 Persian soldiers, they allow the Greeks to regroup, and the Greeks are able to eventually defeat the Persians. One, because the Greeks had, especially the Athenians, had a very strong navy, so they were able to defeat the Persian navy, which is a big deal because the navy is going to be there for if the army needed to get on a boat and retreat or needed to move quickly, they could get on a boat and move. But with their navies defeated, they can't do that. So eventually the Greeks defeat the Persians at a place called Plataea, and the Persians go wee all the way home, and Greece is saved. Now, something I haven't mentioned that it's very important of this is that if the Persians would have defeated the Greeks, our civilization, America, would be different today, because a lot of our culture comes from Greece. And if the Persians would have conquered Greece, therefore, a lot of the Greek culture would have been wiped out and would become more assimilated to Persian culture, and maybe perhaps even our culture would be different than it is today. So this is a major event in world history because it affects us directly. All right, let's talk a little bit about Athens and Sparta. Starting off with Sparta. Very military-based society, cruel in a lot of ways. Survival of the fittest. You stayed in the military for 40 years. So it's their whole life pretty much in the military. Um, and like we said at Thermopylae, these are bad dudes, man. These are the Navy SEALs of their time. I mean, they know what they're doing, and they are in a lot of ways not even allowed to show any kind of emotion. Um, Somewhat like machines in a lot of ways. Crazy. Um, Now, on the positive note, in Sparta, women were the ones who basically ran a lot of the city because the men were always training. So the women could own property. They ran the household. They were very unique in that most of the ancient world women were pretty much second-class citizens, but in Sparta they were not. As far as the Spartan government, it was like a monarchy, and one of their kings was basically the head of their military, like Leonidas was at Thermopylae. But they were different than Athens. Athens was a democracy, of course, and Sparta was not. Athens centered their culture around education, um, intellect. Okay. Now, that once again, that doesn't mean they didn't have a strong military. It didn't mean they had the strongest navy in the world. It just means that they didn't. Their whole life didn't encompass military life. Women didn't have any rights. They were subject to the man, so they were very similar to a lot of the ancient world. So Athens and Sparta are going to not get along. They both want to be the dominant city around the Mediterranean. So Athens starts an alliance with some of the cities, polises around the Aegean, a lot of their colonies around the Aegean called the Delian League. And then the Spartans likewise started an alliance with a lot of the polises and colonies around the Mediterranean called the Peloponnesian League. And they eventually have a major conflict called the Peloponnesian War that eventually the Spartans win because the Athenians decide to break a truce, and the Athenians actually lose to a colonial holding in the island of Sicily, which is the boot of Italy. And thus Sparta becomes the dominant city for a while around the Mediterranean. Now, moving on to a few little more pieces of information. So, Sparta controls the dominance of that area for about 30 years until north of Greece there is an area called Macedonia. And Macedonia, which is still a country today, raises an army, and they go and conquer all the Greek peninsula, led by a king by the name of Philip II. Now, Philip II isn't going to be as important as his son, but Philip II is going to go and conquer Greece, including Sparta and Athens. But he adopts the Greek culture. Macedonia is pretty much going to have the same kind of culture as the Greeks at the time. And so now Greece is going to control Philip II. Philip II is going to die, leading his son, who at the time was very, very young, named Alexander, to take over. Now, Alexander is considered to be, by many, one of the main figures in world history. He is going to conquer and create the largest empire ever at the time. And the unique thing about Alexander is, militarily, he never lost a battle. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. And he fought many of them. He never lost a battle. Okay, he was ruthless. He's going to create an empire that's going to span all the way into India, and it's going to change the world, which we'll get to here in a minute. And change a lot of the world into a Greek world that's going to have a very strong Greek culture. So let's go back to Philip II for a second. Philip II defeats Greece because the Greeks had fought each other in this Peloponnesian War, which really weakened a lot of these cities militarily. He saw the advantage, so he goes down and he conquers um, Greece by taking advantage of these weaknesses. In the last slide today, how did he do it? Well, he used a military formation called the phalanx. Okay, and a phalanx, I like to say, is sort of like uh, a, 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 a tank of soldiers. Okay, now I'm going to go to a picture and I'll go back to this slide. So if you notice here, you have soldiers in line, and notice how the spears, they have these long spears that stick out. So the first line has these long spears. The line behind them has these long spears sticking out, and then the line behind them have other spears sticking out. And basically, if you're going to attack this phalanx, you're going to have to get through these spears. Okay? Now look at all that rows of spears. And if they're marching as one and they're coming at you and they're having these stabbing motions at you, good luck getting through that line of spears. Now let's say that one of these lines, the first person in the line falls. You're going to have the next person step up with his spear, and it's going to be a constant movement of these spears coming at you, and that's how Philip is going to conquer most of Greece, is this phalanx formation. So going back, I call it a tank because a tank's hard to stop. So if this phalanx is coming at you, you're going to have to get, like I said, through this row of spears, and good luck. Now, Philip is going to be murdered, and is going to leave his son Alexander to take the throne. And we'll get into more about Alexander the Great on Wednesday. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to see you on Wednesday. And what you're going to do for me now is just a few little questions to review from Greece. Not many questions. Just you can use your notes, of course, to answer. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.